The Silent Dawn. How a Quiet Morning Can Change Your Life. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. The world wakes up in a rush. Alarms blare, phones buzz, schedules demand attention. Before most people have even stepped out of bed, they are already pulled into the current of obligations, distractions, and noise. Mornings, instead of being a time of renewal, have become a race against the clock, a battle to keep up rather than an opportunity to set the tone for the day. But what if mornings didn't have to feel this way? What if, instead of reacting to the world, you could create a morning that gave you space to think, breathe, and be present? What if the first moments of your day weren't filled with stress, but with stillness? This book is not about waking up at 5 a.m. or forcing yourself into a rigid morning routine. It's not about following a formula designed for someone else's life. It's about reclaiming the quiet, discovering the power of stillness, and using the early hours to transform your mindset, focus, and well-being. The way you start your morning affects everything: your productivity, your creativity, your energy, and even your sense of peace. A silent dawn isn't just a practice, it's a mindset shift that changes how you move through the world. Inside these pages, you'll find science-backed insights, timeless wisdom, and simple, practical steps to help you embrace quiet mornings without drastic lifestyle changes. You'll learn how solitude fuels creativity, why the brain thrives in stillness, and how even a few minutes of intentional silence can reshape your entire day. This is not about adding more to your mornings, it's about removing the noise. It's about creating space to hear yourself think, to process emotions, and to set your own rhythm before the world imposes its own. You don't need more time. You don't need more effort. You just need to begin. And the best time to start is in the quiet of the morning. Chapter 1. The Power of Silence. The world was still asleep when David stepped outside. The streets were empty, the air crisp with the quiet hum of dawn. He had never been a morning person, but after years of chasing deadlines and feeling overwhelmed, he had made a commitment to start his day in silence. At first it felt unnatural, almost uncomfortable. His mind wanted to race, his fingers twitched for his phone, but as he stood in the stillness, something shifted. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the presence of something deeper, a clarity he hadn't felt in years. In a world obsessed with productivity, silence is often mistaken for idleness. We fill every moment with stimulation, scrolling, listening, consuming, leaving little room for reflection. But what if silence wasn't empty? What if it was the space where real transformation begins? Science supports this idea. Studies show that quiet environments enhance creativity, boost cognitive function, and reduce stress. Our brains are constantly processing information, but in the absence of external noise, something powerful happens. We gain access to deeper thoughts, allowing ideas to form naturally rather than forcing them through a cluttered mind. Most people start their mornings in chaos, checking emails, rushing through routines, reacting to the demands of the world before they've even had a moment to think. But what if the first moments of the day belong to you alone? Silence in the morning isn't about doing nothing, it's about reclaiming your mental space before the world intrudes. It's in those first quiet moments that the mind is most open, most creative, and most capable of seeing what truly matters. Historically, some of the most brilliant minds have valued solitude. Beethoven would take long, silent walks before composing his masterpieces. Maya Angelou wrote in a quiet, rented room, free from distractions. Steve Jobs practiced mindfulness, understanding that clarity doesn't come from noise, but from space. The greatest insights often arrive in the silence between thoughts, not in the rush to produce them. There's a reason early mornings feel different. The world hasn't yet imposed its demands, and the energy is still calm, unshaped by the day's noise. By embracing the quiet, you allow yourself to set the tone, rather than being pulled into the current of external expectations. This isn't about waking up at an ungodly hour or forcing a routine that doesn't fit your life. It's about intentionally carving out time for quiet, whether it's 5 minutes or 50. The key is consistency. At first, silence may feel foreign. You might even resist it, feeling the urge to fill the space with sound, movement, or activity. That's normal. Our minds have been conditioned to seek distraction. But as you lean into the quiet, you'll notice a shift. The noise of the world fades, and what's left is you, your thoughts, your emotions, your creativity, your clarity. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, before you check the news, before you engage with the world, pause. Step outside if you can. Sit in the stillness. Breathe. Give yourself the gift of silence. You might be surprised at what you hear. Chapter 2. The Science of Stillness. The mind is never truly quiet. Even in silence, thoughts pulse beneath the surface, shifting between past regrets and future worries. But something profound happens when we intentionally embrace stillness. It's not just a psychological experience, it's a biological shift. Science has shown that moments of quiet can rewire the brain, lower stress levels, and enhance overall well-being. What feels like doing nothing is actually one of the most powerful states we can cultivate. Neuroscientists have discovered that silence activates the brain's default mode network, a system linked to creativity, problem-solving, and self-awareness. When external noise is removed, the brain doesn't shut down, it becomes more engaged, making connections that are often lost in the chaos of everyday life. This is why so many people find their best ideas come in the shower or during a quiet walk. The absence of distraction allows the mind to wander in meaningful ways. In a study by Duke University, researchers found that exposure to silence led to the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the region associated with learning and memory. Another study published in Brain Structure Function revealed that just 2 hours of silence per day led to significant cognitive improvements in lab animals. If silence can physically reshape the brain, imagine what it can do for your mindset, creativity, and focus. Beyond brain function, silence has a measurable impact on stress. Chronic noise triggers the release of cortisol, the hormone responsible for stress and anxiety. Our bodies weren't designed to process constant stimulation, yet modern life surrounds us with notifications, conversations, and background noise. Even if we don't consciously notice it, our nervous systems are in a perpetual state of vigilance. Silence acts as a reset, shifting the body into a parasympathetic state, what scientists call rest and digest. This is the opposite of fight or flight, a state where healing, recovery, and mental clarity thrive. Monks, philosophers, and mystics have long understood what science is now proving. Ancient wisdom traditions emphasize the importance of stillness as a path to enlightenment and self-discovery. The Stoics practice silence to sharpen their thoughts. Buddhist monks meditate in stillness to cultivate presence. Even religious figures, from Jesus to the Prophet Muhammad, retreated into solitude before receiving their greatest insights. These weren't arbitrary practices, they were intentional methods of accessing deeper wisdom. In modern life, we rarely give ourselves permission to be still. We equate silence with boredom or wasted time, yet it is in these quiet moments that we reconnect with ourselves. Many of the world's most successful people attribute their clarity and focus to periods of silence. Bill Gates famously takes think weeks, where he isolates himself in a cabin with no distractions. Warren Buffett spends hours reading and thinking, not reacting. The common thread among high performers isn't endless work, it's the ability to create space for deep thought. Stillness doesn't require a retreat into the mountains or hours of meditation. It can be as simple as sitting quietly with your morning coffee, turning off the car radio on your drive, or stepping outside for a moment of pause. The goal isn't to silence your thoughts but to become aware of them without reacting. In these small pockets of stillness, your mind recalibrates, your nervous system resets, and your creativity ignites. Tomorrow morning, resist the urge to fill the silence. Instead of reaching for your phone or turning on the TV, sit in the stillness. Let your thoughts settle like ripples on water. In a world that never stops moving, stillness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Chapter 3. The Mindset Shift. The way you start your morning shapes the way you live your life. Most people wake up and immediately fall into reaction mode, checking notifications, responding to emails, scrolling through endless streams of content. Before they've even had a moment to think, their day is already dictated by external forces. But what if the first thoughts of your morning were your own? What if, instead of reacting to the world, you took control of your mindset from the very start? Shifting your mindset begins with a simple realization: you are not obligated to rush. The world may demand urgency, but you don't have to comply. A quiet morning gives you the space to decide how you want to think, feel, and approach your day before anything else has a say. This is not about doing more, it's about being intentional with the time you already have. Psychologists call this the primacy effect. The idea that the first experiences of the day have a disproportionate impact on the mind. If your morning begins in chaos, that sense of urgency lingers. If your morning starts with clarity, your mind carries that calmness forward. It's not about having extra hours, it's about how you use the ones available. The most successful people aren't necessarily those who wake up the earliest, they're the ones who take ownership of their mornings. A study from the University of London found that people who practice mindful, intentional mornings experience lower levels of anxiety and greater emotional resilience throughout the day. This is because the brain is highly plastic in the early hours, meaning it absorbs and reinforces whatever patterns are set. If you train your mind to embrace stillness, focus, and gratitude in the morning, you strengthen those pathways over time. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. History is filled with examples of great thinkers and leaders who understood this principle. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote morning reflections to set the tone for his day. Maya Angelou would wake up before sunrise to write in solitude. Leonardo da Vinci used the quiet of the morning to sketch, plan, and think. They didn't just wake up and see where the day took them, they started with intention. One of the most overlooked aspects of a powerful morning is self-talk. Your internal dialogue in the first moments of the day matters more than you think. If your first thought is frustration, stress, or dread, that emotion lingers. But if you consciously shape your thoughts, whether through affirmations, gratitude, or quiet reflection, you direct the flow of your mental state. Neuroscientists have found that repeated positive self-talk strengthens neural connections, making optimism and confidence easier to access. This shift doesn't require drastic changes. A small adjustment in how you approach your mornings can yield profound results. Try this tomorrow. Before reaching for your phone, take a deep breath. Instead of rushing, take a moment to acknowledge the quiet. Even if it's just for a minute, let yourself feel in control of your morning. Observe how different that feels. It's easy to believe that we are at the mercy of our schedules, our responsibilities, and the demands of the world. But the truth is, we have more power than we realize. The mindset you cultivate in the first moments of the day is the foundation upon which everything else is built. When you begin with intention, you don't just change your morning, you change your life. Chapter 4. Breaking the Noise Cycle. The moment you wake up, the world is waiting to pull you in. Notifications flash, messages demand responses, and the digital hum of life fills the silence before you've even had a chance to think. Most people don't question this routine, it feels normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy. The constant barrage of noise is shaping your mind in ways you may not even realize. If you want to reclaim your mornings, you first have to break the cycle of noise. Our brains weren't designed for this level of constant stimulation. Studies show that excessive exposure to digital input floods the brain with dopamine, reinforcing compulsive behaviors. Every time you check your phone, scroll through social media, or react to a notification, your brain receives a hit of instant gratification. Over time, this creates a feedback loop, one that makes stillness feel uncomfortable and silence feel unnatural. But discomfort isn't always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes, it's a sign that something needs to change. The consequences of endless noise are deeper than distraction. Research from the University of California found that constant digital stimulation reduces cognitive function, weakens memory, and increases anxiety. Another study published in the Journal of Neuroscience revealed that people who frequently switch between tasks struggle with deep focus and problem solving. Your brain becomes what it repeatedly does, and if it's always reacting, it forgets how to simply be. This is why so many people struggle with boredom, restlessness, and an inability to enjoy quiet moments. They have trained themselves to crave noise. Breaking the cycle doesn't mean abandoning technology, it means taking back control. It starts with awareness. When you wake up, what's the first thing you do? If your instinct is to reach for your phone, ask yourself why. Is it habit? Anxiety? A fear of missing out? Recognizing the impulse is the first step to rewiring it. One of the most effective ways to reclaim your morning is to create a buffer zone, a period of time where you intentionally avoid external noise. It doesn't have to be long. Even 10 minutes of uninterrupted quiet can shift your entire mindset. During this time, resist the urge to check your phone, turn on the news, or dive into emails. Instead, give yourself permission to exist without input. You'll notice something surprising: the discomfort fades. Over time, stillness becomes easier. Your mind stops searching for distraction and starts settling into clarity. High performers across industries understand the power of protecting their mental space. Tim Ferriss, best-selling author and entrepreneur, avoids all digital input for the first hour of his day. Oprah Winfrey starts her mornings with silence and reflection before engaging with the outside world. They know that what you allow into your mind first thing in the morning dictates your ability to focus, create, and think deeply. If you don't protect your attention, the world will claim it for you. Breaking free from the noise cycle isn't about restriction, it's about intention. Try this tomorrow. Before turning on any device, step outside or sit quietly with a cup of coffee. Notice the difference in how you feel. The stillness may feel strange at first, but that's because you're recalibrating. Every time you choose silence over noise, you strengthen your ability to focus, reflect, and engage with the world on your own terms. The world will always be loud, but your mornings don't have to be. Chapter 5. Morning Rituals That Matter. Most people go through their mornings on autopilot. They wake up, check their phones, rush through their routine, and dive straight into the demands of the day. But the way you start your morning isn't just a series of tasks, it's the foundation for everything that follows. The right morning rituals don't just help you feel productive, they set the tone for clarity, focus, and peace throughout the day. The key to an effective morning ritual isn't complexity, it's consistency. Many people believe they need an elaborate routine filled with journaling, exercise, meditation, and a dozen other habits to have a successful morning. But in reality, the best rituals are the ones you actually stick to. Science shows that simple, intentional habits practiced daily have a greater impact on mindset and well-being than sporadic bursts of effort. The goal isn't to do more, it's to do what matters. A study from Harvard University found that people who start their mornings with intentional rituals experience lower stress levels, improved cognitive function, and higher emotional resilience. This isn't just about feeling good, it's about setting up your brain to perform at its best. The first 30 minutes of your day create a cognitive blueprint that influences how you respond to challenges, make decisions, and interact with others. One of the most powerful rituals is starting the morning without immediate stimulation. Instead of reaching for your phone, give yourself a moment of uninterrupted quiet. This can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, drinking a glass of water, or sitting in silence. The absence of external input allows your mind to wake up naturally rather than being hijacked by notifications, news, or social media. Another transformative ritual is movement. You don't need an intense workout to experience the benefits. A short walk, stretching, or even standing outside to breathe fresh air can reset your nervous system and increase energy levels. Movement releases endorphins, enhances circulation, and primes the body for focus and alertness. Even just 5 minutes of intentional movement can shift your mental state. Journaling is another ritual that has profound effects. Research shows that writing down thoughts, goals, or reflections first thing in the morning helps clear mental clutter and boosts emotional regulation. It doesn't have to be structured, simply putting thoughts onto paper creates clarity and direction. Some of the most successful people in history, from Leonardo da Vinci to Benjamin Franklin, practiced daily morning writing as a way to organize their thoughts and sharpen their minds. Meditation or deep breathing is another ritual that can transform your mornings. Even a few minutes of mindful breathing can lower cortisol levels, improve focus, and increase emotional resilience. You don't need to master meditation to experience its benefits. Simply sitting in stillness, closing your eyes, and focusing on your breath for a few moments can create a powerful shift in mental clarity. The most important thing to remember is that your morning ritual should work for you. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. The key is to design a morning that supports your mindset, energy, and goals. If something doesn't feel right, adjust it. The power of a morning ritual isn't in its complexity, it's in its ability to create consistency and intentionality in your life. Tomorrow morning, choose one simple ritual to start your day with purpose. Whether it's silence, movement, journaling, or meditation, commit to it. Over time, these small habits compound, shaping not only your mornings but your entire life. Chapter 6. Harnessing Creativity in the Early Hours. Creativity isn't something you chase. It's something you create space for. The world is filled with distractions, and most people never give themselves the time or quiet to access their most creative thoughts. But the early morning hours hold a unique power. When the world is still, the mind is at its most open. This is why so many great thinkers, artists, and writers have relied on the quiet of the morning to do their best work. Science backs this up. Studies show that the brain moves through different states of consciousness throughout the day. In the early morning, the mind is in a theta wave state, a phase associated with deep creativity, problem solving, and idea generation. This is the same state the brain enters during meditation or moments of inspiration. When you wake up, your mind is naturally more fluid, unrestricted by logic or external pressures. This makes the early hours the perfect time for creative breakthroughs. But most people never tap into this state because they drown it in noise. The moment they wake up, they check their phones, read emails, or consume content. The brain shifts into reactive mode, and the window for deep creativity closes. If you want to harness the full power of the morning, you have to protect this space. Creativity isn't about forcing ideas, it's about allowing them to emerge. Many of history's greatest minds understood this. Ernest Hemingway wrote in the early hours before the distractions of the day could interfere. Beethoven took morning walks in silence, allowing his best musical ideas to form naturally. Maya Angelou rented a quiet hotel room to write, free from the noise of daily life. They didn't wait for inspiration to strike, they created an environment where it could thrive. One of the simplest ways to unlock creativity in the morning is to free write. Instead of immediately jumping into work or consuming information, take a few minutes to put your thoughts on paper. Don't overthink it. Write whatever comes to mind. This practice, known as morning pages, was popularized by Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way, and has been used by countless creatives to unlock new ideas. It works because it bypasses the logical brain and taps into deeper intuition. Another way to spark creativity is through morning movement. A Stanford study found that walking increases creative output by up to 60%. This is because movement engages the brain in a way that encourages free-flowing thought. You don't need an intense workout, just a simple walk, some stretching, or even standing outside in the fresh air can stimulate new ideas. Stillness is another powerful tool. Many of the greatest insights come not when you're actively thinking, but when you allow your mind to wander. This is why ideas often appear in the shower or during quiet moments. The brain needs space to connect dots that weren't obvious before. If you start your morning with silence instead of stimulation, you give your mind the room it needs to create. Protecting your creativity in the morning isn't about adding more to your routine. It's about removing distractions and allowing your natural state of inspiration to unfold. Tomorrow morning, before you dive into the noise of the world, take 10 minutes to sit with your thoughts. Write, walk, breathe. Give your mind permission to create. The best ideas don't come from forcing them, they come from making space for them. Chapter 7. Productivity without the hustle. Most people equate productivity with speed, moving faster, doing more, squeezing every ounce of energy into the day. But true productivity isn't about how much you do, it's about how effectively you do it. The most successful people aren't the busiest, they're the ones who know how to focus. And the best time to cultivate focus isn't in the middle of a chaotic day, it's in the quiet of the morning. The first hours of the day offer something rare, undistracted time. Your mind is clear, your energy is fresh, and the world hasn't yet imposed its demands. But most people waste this time by jumping straight into emails, social media, or news updates. Instead of using the morning to set the tone for the day, they let external inputs dictate their mood and mindset. If you want to reclaim your focus, you have to stop giving your best mental energy to distractions. Science supports this shift. Studies from the University of California show that multitasking reduces efficiency by up to 40%, yet most people begin their day by dividing their attention. They check messages while eating breakfast, scroll through social media while getting ready, and mentally jump between tasks before even stepping into work. But the brain works best when it focuses on one thing at a time. The key to a productive morning isn't doing more, it's doing less, with intention. One of the most effective ways to maximize morning productivity is to prioritize deep work. Coined by Cal Newport, deep work refers to focused, undistracted effort on tasks that require critical thinking and creativity. Research shows that people are most capable of deep work within the first few hours of waking. This is because cognitive function is highest in the morning, and distractions are lowest. Instead of starting the day with shallow tasks like email, Use this time for meaningful work, writing, strategizing, planning, or solving complex problems. Another powerful habit is single tasking. Many people pride themselves on juggling multiple things at once, but the human brain isn't wired for it. Neuroscientists have found that every time you switch tasks, there is a cognitive cost, a mental lag that slows down performance. By focusing on one task at a time, you train your brain to work more efficiently. Tomorrow morning, instead of multitasking, try focusing entirely on one task for 30 minutes. You'll be surprised at how much more you accomplish. Energy management is another key to sustainable productivity. Many people push through fatigue, thinking that working harder will lead to better results. But research from Stanford University shows that productivity drops sharply after a certain point of exertion. This is why high performers schedule breaks, movement, and intentional pauses into their morning routines. Even short breaks, stepping outside, stretching, or breathing deeply, can reset mental energy and enhance focus. One of the best ways to avoid burnout is to start the day with clarity. Before diving into tasks, take a moment to identify the one most important thing you want to accomplish. Productivity expert Gary Keller calls this the one thing, the single task that, if completed, will make the biggest impact. When you begin your morning with clear priorities, you eliminate decision fatigue and set a strong direction for the day. True productivity isn't about rushing, it's about working smarter, not harder. By eliminating distractions, focusing on deep work, and managing your energy, you can get more done in less time without feeling overwhelmed. Tomorrow morning, resist the urge to jump straight into the noise. Instead, take control of your focus. Your most valuable resource isn't time, it's attention. Protect it. Chapter 8. The Spirituality of Dawn. There is something sacred about the early hours of the morning. Before the world wakes up, before obligations take over, there is a moment of stillness, one that has been cherished for centuries by philosophers, monks, and seekers of wisdom. Whether through prayer, meditation, or simple reflection, people throughout history have recognized that the morning isn't just a time for productivity, it's a time for connection. This connection isn't necessarily religious, it's an awareness, a presence, a way of stepping into the day with intention. When you wake up and immediately dive into tasks, your mind is scattered. But when you start with stillness, you ground yourself in something deeper. Spirituality in the morning isn't about rituals for the sake of tradition. It's about creating space for clarity, gratitude, and purpose before the world imposes its distractions. Science supports the benefits of this kind of morning practice. Studies show that people who start their day with mindful reflection experience lower stress levels, improved emotional resilience, and greater overall happiness. When you take a moment to breathe, to acknowledge the gift of another day, you shift your brain into a state of positive awareness. Instead of being reactive, you become intentional. Instead of feeling rushed, you feel anchored. Many of the world's greatest minds understood the power of the morning as a spiritual reset. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius began his mornings with written reflections on how to approach the day with wisdom. Buddhist monks wake before sunrise to meditate, believing that the early hours hold a unique energy for mindfulness. Even in modern times, successful leaders like Oprah Winfrey and Tim Ferriss incorporate meditation or gratitude into their morning routines, recognizing that clarity of mind leads to clarity in action. One of the most profound morning practices is gratitude. When you wake up, your first thoughts shape the emotional tone of your day. If your mind immediately jumps to stress, problems, or obligations, that energy lingers. But if you start by acknowledging something positive, a small joy, a moment of beauty, the simple fact that you are alive, you train your brain to focus on abundance rather than lack. Neuroscientists have found that consistent gratitude practice physically reshapes the brain, strengthening pathways associated with optimism and emotional well-being. Another powerful practice is silent reflection. Many people avoid silence because they fear being alone with their thoughts. But embracing quiet moments allows you to listen, not just to the world around you, but to yourself. Whether you sit with a cup of coffee in stillness, take a few deep breaths, or step outside to witness the sunrise, these small pauses create room for insight. Journaling can also be a form of spiritual practice. Writing down thoughts, reflections, or even a single sentence of intention can help bring clarity. The act of putting words on paper externalizes thoughts, making them easier to process. It's not about writing perfectly, it's about checking in with yourself before the world pulls you in 100 directions. Whatever form it takes, a spiritual morning practice isn't about rules or obligations, it's about creating a moment of connection. It's about remembering that you are more than your to-do list, that life is more than deadlines, and that the morning is an opportunity, not just another task to get through. Tomorrow morning, take a moment to pause, feel the stillness before the world wakes up, breathe deeply, acknowledge the gift of the new day. In that moment, nothing else matters, and that's the beauty of it. Chapter 9. The Psychology of Morning Solitude. Solitude is often misunderstood. Many people associate being alone with loneliness, but they are not the same. Loneliness is the absence of connection, while solitude is the presence of self. In the quiet of the morning, when the world is still, solitude becomes a gift, a space to listen to your own thoughts before the outside world drowns them out. Psychologists have studied the effects of solitude and found that it has profound benefits for mental clarity, emotional regulation, and creativity. In contrast to isolation, which can feel empty, solitude is intentional. It's a deliberate choice to step away from external noise and reconnect with yourself. This is why so many thinkers, artists, and philosophers have turned to solitude as a source of insight. The mind, when given space, naturally organizes itself. Studies from the University of Virginia found that most people struggle to sit alone with their thoughts, preferring external stimulation, even if it's unpleasant. In one experiment, participants were given the choice between sitting in silence or administering a mild electric shock to themselves. Astonishingly, many chose the shock. This highlights a deep discomfort with stillness, a discomfort rooted in modern culture's obsession with constant engagement. Yet those who learn to embrace solitude discover something unexpected: clarity. Morning solitude has a unique psychological advantage. After sleep, the mind is in a state of transition, moving from the subconscious realm of dreams to the structured world of waking life. This liminal space, where thoughts are fluid and emotions are raw, is where deep self-awareness can emerge. It is in these moments, before distraction sets in, that we can see our lives with the most honesty. Many of history's greatest minds understood the importance of solitude. Albert Einstein often took long walks alone to process ideas. Virginia Woolf wrote about the necessity of having a room of one's own for creative thought. Even modern leaders, from Steve Jobs to Bill Gates, have used solitude as a tool for reflection and decision-making. They recognize that some of the most important answers come not from external advice, but from internal stillness. The key to embracing solitude in the morning is shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing it as empty space, see it as an opportunity. A few minutes of quiet time can help you check in with yourself, set your intentions, and process emotions that might otherwise go unnoticed. It can be as simple as sitting with a cup of coffee in silence, taking a short walk without distractions, or writing down your thoughts before the day begins. Another way to deepen morning solitude is to practice mindful observation. Instead of immediately engaging with technology, take a moment to notice your surroundings. The sound of birds outside, the rhythm of your breath, the softness of the morning light, these small details ground you in the present moment. Psychologists call this sensory anchoring, and it has been shown to reduce stress and increase overall well-being. The biggest challenge with solitude is often discomfort. Many people feel uneasy without background noise or digital engagement, but this discomfort is temporary. The more you practice solitude, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you begin to crave these moments of quiet, not as an escape, but as a way to recalibrate. Tomorrow morning, before engaging with the world, take a few minutes to sit in solitude. No phone, no conversation, just you and the morning air. Let your thoughts rise and settle naturally. In this stillness, you will find something that no amount of external stimulation can provide: yourself. Chapter 10. The Art of Doing Nothing. Modern life glorifies busyness. Productivity is worn like a badge of honor, and stillness is often mistaken for laziness. But what if the key to a more meaningful, creative, and fulfilling life isn't doing more, it's doing nothing? The quiet moments, the pauses between tasks, the spaces where no immediate action is required, these are the places where true insight and renewal happen. There is an art to doing nothing, and it is deeply misunderstood. In Italian culture, there is a concept called dolce far niente, which translates to the sweetness of doing nothing. It is not about wasting time, it is about being present, about allowing the mind to rest and wander without guilt. The greatest ideas, the deepest insights, and the most profound creative breakthroughs often come not when we are forcing them, but when we allow ourselves to simply be. Neuroscience confirms what ancient wisdom has long understood. Studies show that when the brain is not actively engaged in a task, it shifts into what scientists call the default mode network. This state, often associated with daydreaming, reflection, and memory consolidation, is essential for problem solving and innovation. It is why the best ideas often come in the shower, on a walk, or in the moments before sleep. The brain needs space to connect ideas that are not obviously linked. Without that space, creativity suffers. Yet most people resist stillness. The moment a free moment arises, they reach for their phones, fill the silence with noise, or search for something to do. This compulsive need to be busy is a symptom of a larger issue: discomfort with stillness. When the mind is not occupied, deeper thoughts and emotions surface. Many people avoid this because it forces them to confront themselves. But discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong, it is a sign that something important is happening. Philosophers and spiritual leaders have long embraced the power of stillness. The Stoics believed that quiet reflection was essential for wisdom. The Taoists saw non-action wu wei as a form of alignment with the natural flow of life. Buddhist monks practice meditation not to achieve something, but to learn how to simply exist. Even modern leaders, like Bill Gates, take annual Think Weeks where they retreat into solitude to let their minds wander without structure. Doing nothing does not mean abandoning responsibilities. It means allowing space between moments. It means resisting the urge to fill every gap with activity. It means giving yourself permission to sit with your thoughts, to breathe deeply, to exist without expectation. A few minutes of intentional stillness in the morning can shift the entire rhythm of the day. One simple way to practice this is to create micro pauses. Before rushing to check your phone in the morning, pause. Before responding to an email, take a breath. Before moving to the next task, sit for a moment and do nothing. These small breaks retrain the brain to embrace stillness rather than resist it. Another practice is purposeful idleness. Take 5 minutes each morning to simply sit with a cup of coffee, tea, or water, without reading, scrolling, or thinking about what comes next. Let the moment exist for its own sake. It may feel strange at first, but over time, this practice becomes a source of clarity. Tomorrow morning, resist the pull of busyness. Instead of immediately diving into tasks, sit for a moment and do nothing. Let your mind settle. Listen to the silence. In the space between activity, in the stillness of the morning, you will find something unexpected: peace. Chapter 11. Transforming your life, one morning at a time. Change doesn't happen overnight. It happens in small moments, in tiny choices, in the quiet spaces where new habits take root. The way you begin your morning may seem insignificant, but over time, it shapes everything: your mindset, your focus, your energy, and ultimately your life. A transformed morning leads to a transformed day, and enough transformed days create an entirely new way of living. The mistake most people make when trying to change their mornings is aiming too high, too fast. They attempt to overhaul everything at once, waking up hours earlier, adding meditation, exercise, journaling, and a long list of habits that quickly become overwhelming. But real transformation doesn't come from extreme change, it comes from consistency. A simple 5-minute shift done daily has more impact than a complex routine abandoned after a week. Behavioral scientists have found that habit stacking, anchoring new habits to existing routines, is one of the most effective ways to create lasting change. Instead of trying to force an entirely new morning structure, attach small improvements to things you already do. If you drink coffee in the morning, take a moment of silence before the first sip. If you check your phone first thing, replace that habit with a deep breath or a short reflection. Small shifts repeated daily create momentum. Another key to transformation is self-awareness. Not every morning practice works for everyone. Some people thrive on structured routines, while others need flexibility. The goal isn't to follow a perfect formula, it's to create mornings that serve you. Pay attention to what brings you energy, clarity, and focus. If something feels forced or draining, adjust it. The best routine is the one that you enjoy enough to sustain. Science confirms that morning habits influence the brain's neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire itself based on repeated behaviors. When you begin your day with intention, Whether through silence, movement, reflection, or deep work, you reinforce neural pathways that make clarity and focus easier to access. Over time, these patterns become second nature. What once felt like effort becomes effortless. History is filled with examples of people who have transformed their lives through intentional mornings. Benjamin Franklin structured his mornings around reflection and planning. Maya Angelou reserved the first hours of her day for writing in solitude. Steve Jobs used mornings to focus on what truly mattered, asking himself, if today were my last day, would I be doing what I'm about to do? These habits weren't random, they were deliberate choices that compounded into extraordinary lives. One of the most overlooked aspects of morning transformation is letting go of perfection. Many people give up on morning rituals because they miss a day or fall off track. But missing a day isn't failure, it's life. The key is to return to the practice without guilt. The power of morning transformation isn't in never breaking the routine, it's in always coming back to it. Tomorrow morning, make one small shift. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Just one intentional choice, pausing before checking your phone, sitting in silence for a minute, writing a single sentence in a journal. Start small, but start. Over time, these moments will accumulate, and without realizing it, you'll wake up one day to find that your mornings and your life have changed. Chapter 12. Your Silent Dawn. The morning holds a promise, a chance to begin again, to choose clarity over chaos, to create a day that aligns with what truly matters. But this promise isn't found in a rigid routine or a checklist of habits. It's found in presence, in intention, in the simple act of embracing quiet before the noise of the world rushes in. Your silent dawn is not about perfection. It's about creating space to listen, to reflect, and to set the tone for the life you want to live. By now you've explored the power of silence, the science of stillness, and the psychology of solitude. You've seen how small shifts, pausing before checking your phone, embracing quiet moments, choosing deep work over distraction, can create profound change. But knowledge alone is not enough. Transformation happens through action, through the small, daily choices that shape your mornings and, ultimately, your life. The most powerful morning practice isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. For some, that might mean starting the day with stillness, letting thoughts settle before diving into responsibilities. For others, it could be movement, shaking off sleep and reawakening the body with energy. It could be writing, reflecting, breathing, walking, or simply sitting in the quiet and appreciating the gift of a new day. The form it takes doesn't matter as much as the intention behind it. One of the biggest obstacles people face in building morning habits is waiting for motivation, but motivation is unreliable. It fades, it fluctuates, it doesn't always show up when you need it. What matters is commitment, a decision to show up for yourself, even when you don't feel like it. A small morning habit, repeated daily, will have more impact than an elaborate routine that is abandoned after a week. Consistency is the secret to lasting change. There will be days when you wake up tired, when distractions pull you in, when old habits try to take over. That's normal. The key is to return to your practice without guilt or frustration. Missing one morning doesn't undo the progress you've made. What matters is getting back to it, over and over again, until it becomes a natural part of your life. The real beauty of a quiet morning isn't just in how it shapes your day, it's in how it changes your relationship with time. When you begin the day with intention, you stop feeling like life is something that happens to you. Instead of reacting to the world, you take ownership of how you engage with it. You realize that you don't have to wake up feeling rushed, overwhelmed, or disconnected. You have the power to create a different experience. Tomorrow morning, take a deep breath before you step into the day. Let the silence settle around you. Notice how it feels to start the morning on your terms, without urgency, without noise, without pressure. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. This is your silent dawn, your opportunity to begin again, every single day,